Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We are going to dig in and talk about classroom websites. We're going to talk about whether or not you would benefit from having a classroom website. We're going to demystify some of the parts and pieces that go into making a classroom website. I'm going to share with you my tutorials or my pros and cons of me working through building a free website on a variety of different platforms, and I'll share with you the pros and cons of that, and so that you can decide which platform is going to be best for you. And I'm going to give you some hints and tips on layout. Now, if at the end of this is something you want me to actually go through and walk you through step by step how to set it up on one platform, it's definitely something that I can do. But there's like 4 or 5 different platforms. So I didn't want to spend all night walking you through each and every one. But there might be a few popular ones that we might be interested in. So if that's something you want, then you can let me know, and I can do that later and share that with you. So we are going to talk about building a classroom website. If you're new to the show, my name is Patty, and I am a 4-5 split grade teacher here in Ontario, Canada, and I come live every single Monday night at 9 when I remember to post in the correct group. But I come live every single Monday night to talk about teaching with inquiry, and all of the things that we teachers need to do when we are teaching in the junior grades. So thank you for joining me. July's theme in our live events are how to. So last week we talked about how to use email lists to support communication with parents, and today I'm going to talk to you about classroom websites. So if you are somebody who thinks that you would want to have a classroom website, then there's a few things to ask yourself. Number one, are you looking for a way to communicate with parents that allows you to kind of put something out there and lets parents consume it on their own time? So if you find that you don't have a lot of parents that are checking agendas, if you have me as a parent in your classroom, then a classroom website works really well. I'm not one that always looks at the agenda all of the time. So if you've got parents like that, then a classroom website might be a great way, because parents can check for information when they need to go check, and it's always there. You also might want a classroom website if you want to be able to share with parents on your own terms. So for me, it's really difficult for me to find time in my busy day to be writing constantly in agendas, notes and different things, or keeping parents updated, or writing a newsletter and shoving it in the front pocket of the agenda all within that school day. That's a really difficult time. I have a hard time finding when that's going to be done, because so much is happening between 9 and 3 that I literally just need that ability to write those newsletters or communicate with parents outside of 9 to 3. Now, I'm not saying I'm communicating with parents all evening long. I have to put my own limits on that. But between about 3:30 and about 4:30 is a great time for me to sit down and go, okay, what do parents need to know for the month ahead? And what do I need to communicate with parents en masse? Maybe not individually, but en masse, that I want to be public and there so parents can reference it continually. So I do use my website and my email list in conjunction with one another, because I set it up on MailChimp to automatically email out every time I write a new blog post. So if I'm writing a blog post once a month, I can set up my MailChimp, which is my email service provider that we talked about last week. I can set up my email service provider that every time I click submit and publish on my website, it automatically emails everything I wrote straight to parents. So they can get the content on my website. It lives there. It has a home. It lives on my website, but they also get it sent directly to their email, which I know I've heard a lot of teachers say that they put forth effort to put content out on their website, but they're not really sure that parents actually check it. I do. I'm a parent in that classroom. If you have a website, I'm definitely checking it, but it also is helpful. I don't know when posts are are added. So if I get an email that reminds me of when a post is added, parents are more likely to click over to your website so that they can read maybe the full content, or they can refer to some static stuff that you've got there all the time. A classroom website also is going to be good for you if you're looking for a paperless way to write newsletters and you're willing to commit to writing a update for parents at least once a month. So I'm not saying you've got to update it every day. That's a little tedious, or even every week, but at least once a month, or whatever schedule you determine, you've got to be consistent with it. So if you think you're going to be able to update parents at the beginning of every month and let them know what's happening in your classroom, then you can go ahead and do that. If you want to be able to update parents at the beginning of every week, you can do that as well. But whatever you do, you have to be able to be consistent with it over the entire year. So if you're someone where paper doesn't really work well for you, or agendas are really overwhelming, then a classroom website might be an alternative for you to be able to still have that open communication with parents and be able to dialogue and share what's happening in your classroom in a way that might not even be possible with an agenda, because you can't often share pictures and things like that, whereas you can with a classroom website that is through your school board. So another thing you might want to consider, a lot of school boards or school districts give teachers access to certain platforms that use the school board's name in it. So if you're with Peel, you're in your website, school website address, it would be part of the board. So it would be your teacher page at peel.org. Or if you're with Hamilton, at hwdsb.on.ca. Part of your website is hosted, so it lives on their servers, which means all of the consent forms that you get signed that allows you to share information can be shared on school board sites if your permission forms indicate that. I know mine do, so I don't have to lock mine down for privacy, and I can share student pictures of those students that have permission forms with the school board, because I am using a school board site, if that makes sense. So the first thing you need to consider is what platform you're going to use. If your school board does provide a specific platform to use, whether it's a Google site or a WordPress blog, then I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you don't look at any other platform and use that, because as the teacher, it gives you the ability to share as an employee of that school board. However, if you don't like the platform that your school board has given, or you don't want to use it, that's totally fine. I would just be really cautious about, or just check with your admin or your tech department as to whether or not your permission form for sharing photos actually covers external websites. And that just means you don't share pictures. You can still share updates on your classroom, and you might want to also lock it down for privacy. However, I would discourage that, because the locking your website down for privacy is only as private as many people are willing to share that password. So mom and dad have the password to log into your website. They share it with grandma, who shares it with Aunt Cecilia, who shares it with all of these other people. So it's really not necessary to lock it down unless you're mandated to. I would say skip that and just don't post pictures if you're hosting your website outside of your school board. So I hope that is as clear as mud. Go with your school board's platform if they have one, and you can share freely as an employee of the school board. If you don't like or don't have a platform with your school board, still create a website if it's going to work for you. Just don't put classroom photos on there unless you've confirmed that it's okay with your school board. I think that's in summary. So when you're designing your website, there's some key vocabulary that I wanted to go over so that when you get onto some of these platforms, you are familiar with what exactly it is asking you. Some are far easier and intuitive than others, and some, like WordPress, are overwhelming because there's so much flexibility that you have a lot of choice and it can be overwhelming. So the first two things I want to talk about are the difference between a home page and a blog page. So on your website, I guess we could go with a website. A website is your place on the internet. You decide what that website's going to look like. A lot of web pages now are starting with a home page, where a home page is just a bunch, it's like the binder cover and table of contents of your teacher binder. So if you think of it that way, that is a home page. It's like your binder cover. It has a title, it's got a pretty picture, and then it has like a table of contents right on the, imagine you put the table of contents right on top of your binder page. So it tells people the different features. You could put things like your categories of different topics that you teach. So parents could click on, I want to know more about language, I want to know more about math, I want to know more about science and social studies. And then you can simply link them to your blog page. This is a second page on your website. And this is, think of it like a feed, like on a Facebook feed. You have content and things that you write, and they're organized by the date at which you write it. And the thing you wrote most recently comes at the top. And then there's other articles written in a row. So if you compare that to a binder, it's like you've got a binder and inside you just have one-page articles, and your table of contents could link to those pages. So a blog post page is where you have the list of all of your articles that you have written, and they're organized by date. And a home page is like your binder cover that you would have your title, your pictures, and then some of your links that might be of interest that people could click on if they want to narrow down the topics that they want to know. If I want to know just about math, what part of this binder do I go to? And you link them to that place. So that is those two main parts. Now you also don't need a home page. You can just open up your website straight onto the blog page where you just have article after article after article after article. However, if you think of a binder, if you don't know what's in it and it doesn't have a cover, it's harder to navigate. So it's harder to get around and to find the things you want to find. So websites are designed so that you can organize information on your website, and a home page will allow you to give that kind of overall impression, some quick links for people to go to, and then a blog page where they can just read the most recent topic. So those are the two. You also have categories. Now, if you think of all of the articles you've written, you need to decide which categories these go into. So on a blog page, you can set up, every time you write an article, you can tell the website what category the information in this article is a part of. Now, this is really helpful because it allows the people reading your website, the parents, it allows them to be able to sort and filter different articles that you've written or different pieces of information you've written based on the topic that it is. So if you're talking about math, they can sort it by math. If you're talking about language, they can sort and just look at the things you've written about your language program or about your science program. It allows you to organize it. You also have media. Now, this is the visual components, and most of the websites call it media. Media is just another term for pictures or videos or visual content that is on your website. For every article that you write, every blog post that you post, it will want you to put a picture that goes with it. Now, you can simply just take a picture of something in your classroom that you're talking about. So if you're talking about what's coming up in the week, take a picture of your agenda board and that becomes your picture. And you can take that picture, and a lot of the websites will allow you to update your website straight from your phone or your iPad, which makes it really easy to click a photo, type out a blog post right on your phone, edit it, publish it, and you're done. Once you have the website set up, which you would do now in the summer, it's simply just updating it as frequently as you are wanting to do so. So you have media, so you want to upload those photos and share visual information with your blog posts. You want to make sure that all of your blog post articles are associated with a specific category that allows people to sort it. And you want to consider having a home page, which is the first page people will land on when they hit your classroom website, that allows them to get a quick introduction with links of different aspects of places that you want them to be able to go. So I hope that kind of clarifies the vocabulary. If you have any questions as I'm going, feel free to just drop them in. So before you get started, you are going to probably want a few images that you can have as you're building what your website looks like, because now is a great time to build what it visually looks like before you start adding in content for parents to read. So there's 2 steps. First, we build it, and then we create the content that parents are going to read on our website. So you might want to gather up a few photos that you can have ready to go, ready to upload, so that you know where they are and so that you can add these to your website. You probably are going to want a picture of your classroom. So maybe wait until you get back in your room and take a photo of it, or if you've taken a photo of it in the past, add that. If you don't have a photo of your classroom, simply just use a photo that you can get on a Google image search. If you like a photo there, you could always use an image. Just make sure you are trying to look for free images that are not under copyright. You can find other photos on websites like Pixabay and Unsplash, UNSPLASH are all places you can get free photos. So you'll want a picture of your classroom, and you'll want a picture that represents each of the subjects that you teach. So you maybe want a math type picture, language, science, phys ed if you teach it. You want a kind of static picture that represents that subject that you want to pick. And you might want another one for, say, homework, or think about all of if you're creating a binder, what would be all the categories inside that binder? You're going to want to create or have a photo that would be a nice cover page for each of those categories. So if you were going to create a binder, creating a website is very similar. It's a similar analogy. So once you've created your website, I'm going to flip over here so you can see what my classroom website looks like. So this is an example of my classroom website. You can see, like, I don't always update it. I had 30 kids this year. It was not getting updated. But I do have a title at the top. So I had 4-5 in room 205. So this is my logo. Now I just went to canva.com, and again, just like we talked about last week with your email, creating a logo or just a visual image, you can go to Canva and create a colorful little image that goes visual, that goes on the top of each of your pages on your website. So this is mine. I've had other ones as well. The Madly Learning actually isn't. You see the Madly Learning there on the top. You're going to notice that that's going to scroll down. So that's not part of the website. So then I have a navigation bar here where I have different information for homework. Kate, I would say if I were you, because you're a prep coverage teacher, I would probably work on either using what the homeroom teacher has. So if the homeroom teacher uses a website, if all your homeroom teachers uses a website, you can go ahead and get updated as an admin on their sites to post for them. Or you can create your own and then just set it up to email parents out for information. So if you watched last week's video where we talked about setting up an email list, I would maybe work on an email list first, because that's going to be able to email as most people as possible. And then you can tag and segment them, which means that you can separate it out based on what class you're teaching, versus a website would just be information for everybody. But you could definitely do it where you would have all of the homework that they could go up and look at it. So up on this navigation bar, you could have, 4-5A, 4-5B, 5A, 5C, and then they could just simply link to all of the information that would pertain to their class alone. So you could definitely set it up that way. It depends on how you want parents to use the site. So you can also just use, so this section where you see my classroom all faded out, that's called a hero image. And this is just part of the template. This is built on WordPress because that's what my school board uses. It is branded, so you'll see my school board's website up there at the top. Oh, maybe you won't. I don't think you're seeing that. So then you can scroll down and you can see that I don't have a home page. I simply just have a blog page where I have information for parents on the side. And I have just updated just one really long newsletter post for parents. This is one from a previous year that I'm just going to load up for you so that you can see it. Oh, this site has moved. I guess I've created a home for it, so you can't see it anymore. But that is the old one there. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. So I did say that we were going to talk about I used three different websites today and tried to go through and set up different websites, all free. So these are not with any boards. So one I didn't do was Google Sites. Google Sites is really simple. So if you're looking for a really simple, very basic format, then Google Sites works. However, I really think that there's a lot of restrictions on what you are able to do, and you kind of just have to take the templates that they give you and settle on them. So I really like having flexibility. It's why I use all of my websites. My Madly Learning website, my classroom website are all built on WordPress. WordPress you have two different WordPresses. You have WordPress.com. That's the free one. So if you're looking to build your own WordPress website, WordPress.com is free. WordPress.org is not. And it's far more technical and you need hosting and a domain and all of those things. So it's not what we're looking at. So make sure when you're going to WordPress, you're going to WordPress.com. So this is an example of my classroom website. Now this is the dashboard of what you would see. So there's a lot of options here. And this is sometimes why it might be a little daunting. What I do really like about WordPress is I really like the URL. So that is the address that you're going to put up into the search bar to find that website. I love that I can just do mrsfirthclass.school.blog and that's it. So it looks a little less like I'm using a free service, I guess. To me, it looks a little bit more professional and authentic that it says school.blog. And I've picked that through some of the settings. I told WordPress that it was an education blog, and I picked a couple of names that fit until I liked the free version that they gave me. With all of these, they're going to constantly ask you to upgrade to a paid service. Don't do it. You don't need to. Use the free one that they give you. So for here, when you are looking at the pages, this is where you get to determine whether or not you have a home page and then your blog feed. So as it's loading, you have the ability to design. So you pick a template, and then from the template, you decide what you want it to look like. So this is just a template that I picked, and I just changed the elements to suit what I wanted. So I couldn't find that classroom picture, so I just picked a random pink notebook that I happen to have. And you'll see down here, it already says it'll just list my recent blog posts. So it's not going to list all of them like the blog post page will, but it lists like 3 or 4 of them so that people can just see the most recent. And then it gives people the option to follow my blog by getting email content delivered to them, which will let my email service provider, being MailChimp, let them know that I need information set up. So that's what that looks like. It is a bit more technical. There's a lot more choice down here to fill things out. When you're choosing design, you can pick the different themes. So it gives you some selection of different themes that you want to pick. You simply just pick the one that looks closest to the thing you want your website to look like. And they all have like a little header image and where your name goes on top, and they have some photos below. 2019 is a really simple one to use. If you want something a little prettier, you can. It really doesn't matter. You just pick the one that you like, and if you don't like it and you want to try a different one, you just pick another one and you try that one, and it's fine. So the benefits of WordPress is that it is far more flexible. So if you are really picky with how you want things to look, then you do have that flexibility with WordPress. If you're familiar with WordPress, then go along with it. If you're willing to kind of trudge through some of the technical stuff as you're getting started, go to WordPress. If you're looking for something just really simple, your other two options are going to be Weebly and Wix. Now, I did find these to be pretty comparable. Wix has a lot of flexibility with what they offer you. So if you just create a new site, it's the same thing. You can create a new site, you choose your template. It gives you some placeholder things that are already there in the template. You just click them and replace them with your own content. So as you'll see, you're going around. It won't often give you education, so just click other. It's fine. And it'll either let you create your own, so it'll give you like a total assistant that does it yourself. I didn't try that. I'm far too picky. So I just chose my own template. And you can go through Wix and just choose what you want yours to look like. So you can see the categories here. Sometimes you might want to look at like a mummy blog template is a good one. You don't need a business. That's mostly like a store. You don't want a storefront. And photography and video, you don't need a portfolio like that. So you're probably going to choose blogs and forums because that's really the closest thing that we're making. And maybe a lifestyle. I really like this Bump and Beyond one because it's got Instagram at the top. And I like having a classroom Instagram. So I do find Wix as being still flexible as WordPress, but it is a drag and drop feature. So what you see is what you get on Wix. If you want a picture in a certain place, you put the picture in that place, and what you see on that website is what you're going to get. So it's really drag and drop for that. If you're looking at, you don't really want to have to make a lot of choices and you simply just want to, okay, the picture goes here, okay, I'll find a picture, and then this goes here, okay, I'll find that, then I would say Weebly. So if making a website is totally overwhelming for you and this is just something that you don't really want to spend a ton of time doing, then Weebly is your answer. The URL at the top is not as bad. It does say weebly.com, but this is simply, I did this on my mobile, so that's why I had a classroom photo. But you just have the title at the top, your navigation bar. I threw a photo in there. I really like the look of having photo grids. So I don't have these linked yet, but you can link these with categories. So this would go to all of the language pieces on your website. And I just found out how to do that. It was a simple Google search. How do I link photos to my categories on Weebly? And it was a simple solution. You just add in the URL. Then I also don't like the picture in the background because it's a couch, which is weird, but I haven't changed that yet. But I like to have my philosophy. I like to share with teachers kind of what my classroom has, and then just simply read more of our monthly newsletters. And this should prompt people to go to our blog page, which is right here. And you'll see that I just have a simple blog post and something crazy about me, which I've all edited. So Weebly is really simple. I also really like that Weebly has an app. So it's got an app. Woo. It's got an app right here on this for iPad and for your phone where you can change and edit information. So there's the same web page right there on my app, so I can add to it or change information on it if I need to, which is really handy. The other two do not have, so you're going to have to edit and update all on your desktop or laptop computer, which depending on how you're going to use it is going to be different. So if you are going to be somebody who's going to need to be updating it on a mobile device all the time, then Weebly probably is your answer. If you are really picky about what something looks like and you want it to look really pretty and you're willing to do the little bit of work, but you don't want all the technical work, then I would say go with Wix. And if you're somebody that really wants a lot of flexibility in your website design and you kind of want to use the gold standard of what most websites are built on, I would go ahead and use WordPress. So kind of in that order: beginner, Weebly; middle, Wix; and WordPress kind of at the if you're crazy and don't like anything of a template and want to make it all your own, then yeah, use WordPress. But again, if your school board has a platform that they've already picked, try to use that one first, because it really is better for all accounts if you use that. So I do highly recommend that teachers have websites. I think it makes you far more visual for your parents. It's more transparent. I find it a lot easier to keep everybody updated on what's happening in my classroom. And I'm not constantly needing to do that during the school day because I can update that on my own time. In fact, a lot of the time my website gets built almost completely in the summer, and then I can schedule posts to be posted throughout the school year, such as homework calendars and things of that nature can all be pre-scheduled in the summer and then automatically go out throughout the year, which is really handy because then I don't have to think about it. Things like assigning homework and sharing homework assignments with parents are a lot easier out on a website than constantly relying on students to write down their homework in their agendas. I do still think agendas are important. I just think agendas are for kids, not for the adults. I think we need to have other forms of communication with adults and allow kids to be kids and understand that they're not the greatest communicators of important information because they're children. So that's my soapbox. That's okay. So if you have any other questions about using a website or how to set one up, feel free to pop them in the comments and I can do my best to answer them for you, or whatever situation you might happen to be teaching in and how you might run that website. That would be great. There is a ton of video tutorials on how to set it up, but don't spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing it. This Weebly website I set up in about an hour on my iPad. It's not the prettiest, but it would work. And that's really what you're looking for, is something that would work. And again, if you want to go to the super simple, Google Sites is the way to go, but it's not as flexible as I would like. It's not as user-friendly, so that's why I'm not really recommending it. I didn't like it. So again, that's Weebly, Wix, and WordPress are your three, in my opinion, your three go-to websites that you can use to create a classroom website. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gives you some ideas about what you can do to help facilitate better communication with parents in your classroom. So on a separate note, I just wanted to ask you if you could do me a favor. If you have ever purchased a product from Teachers Pay Teachers from my store, Madly Learning, I would love it if you could go and leave feedback on the products you purchased. And here's why. Because school is approaching, leaving feedback gives you credits, and those credits can be used towards future purchases on Teachers Pay Teachers. So you get some money back. So for those of you that have purchased bundles, you get quite a bit of savings back when you leave feedback on the products that you've purchased on my store, on anybody's store on TPT. So it's so worth it. If you're spending money on Teachers Pay Teachers, you get money back by simply just leaving feedback and letting sellers know how much you loved the product and how much it made an impact on your classroom. So I would love for you to go to TPT, go into your dashboard in the top right-hand corner of the page and leave feedback for the products you purchased so that you can get some money back the next time you purchase things, especially if it's on a sales day, which I don't know when they're coming, but we all know that they're going to be coming before back to school. So if you get that head start now, you'll know how much feedback credits you have so that you can take some money off of those future purchases. So I'd really appreciate it if you could leave feedback on the products that you may have purchased on TPT. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week when we dive into a bit more how-to technical ideas. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye for now.